Okay, it looks like we are streaming live. Christine, are we good?
You can go right into it. It takes a while
Yes.
for us to catch up.
Yes, so welcome Jesper Zerlang to Happy and Succeeding, the Future of Work. And this is going to be a really great show today. I'm really excited to speak with Jesper. We spoke previously for a Forbes article I wrote, and he gave some great leadership advice. He runs a cybersecurity company. And then I thought this is very appropriate with what's going on in Eastern Europe, the war, the invasion by Russia into the Ukraine, and curious how, what kind of cyber warfare is going on as well. So this is very timely. And Jesper, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you do in your company, and then maybe about what's going on with cybersecurity and maybe cybersecurity warfare and what we should know about.
Oh, definitely. And thank you for having me here, Jack. It's always a pleasure. So yes, LogPoint is a cybersecurity company that basically provides software solutions to companies that want to protect themselves from being attacked. That's the simple version. And the more technical version is that we actually ingest a lot of data from all the technical points that a company has. So basically we gather all the DNA, the digital DNA of a company, and we can analyze this and proactively alert a company if abnormal behavior is happening, and then potentially that an attack or malicious behavior is happening in your network. And like you said, more than ever, this is really something that's super important. And in the cyber domain, we have been challenged over the last 4 or 5 years to really get the cyber topic on the agenda. And I've been talking to this a lot, and it seems like you cannot see cyber. It's not tangible. It's not like a fire in a building. Everybody knows it's hot and you need to do something and protect yourself. But cyber attacks cannot be seen because it just happens in your networks. And so what is happening? You always need these events. We've seen a lot of attacks. There's been attacks in the U.S. on oil pipelines and other very dramatic attacks lately. And of course, now with the Russia invading Ukraine, it is evident and very apparent to us that there has been building up over the last probably 3-4 weeks before they invaded Ukraine. Our customers reported, and we could see in our system a increase in attacks from Russian attackers all over the Western world, both in the U.S. and also in Europe. And so what's happening is that they are just trying to disrupt the Western world and to kind of put the focus somewhere else. And then finally, when they invaded physically, but the cyber attacks is actually much more severe, attacking hospitals, the defense mechanisms, utility, energy. A lot of these things are happening as we speak, and it's really on the rise. And Russia has a very advanced cyber war capability that is known to the world, but just like the movie Don't Look Up, it's like everybody is basically saying it's not going to hit us. It's not going to hit us. But with this Ukrainian invasion, it's very evident that it's very aggressive in Europe, but also in the US.
So how does it work? So when you said hospitals, I mean, that just seems so ruthless. Will they just cut things off so then it just makes it hard to do the work to take care of people in the hospital?
Yeah, it's everything from just simply disrupting systems so you cannot operate. You don't have access to patient journals. You cannot activate the machines that are supporting life. And it can be a series of
So wait, I'm sorry. So in other words, they could even disrupt if you're on a ventilator or something like that. They could kind of through cyber warfare just knock you offline. And
yes,
that's ruthless. That's horrible.
So one way of doing this is they would attack your network, and maybe they've been kind of it is like warfare. So they maybe do a reconnaissance over the last 1 or 2 years and get ready for these attacks. And then they would create, let's say they would attack a hospital, and they will create a user with administrative rights. So all the systems in the hospitals see this user as a normal user. It has all the right credentials. They have made a fake digital picture of themselves. So all the control systems regard them as a friendly user of the systems, but they're not. So they will get access to very central parts of where you shut off systems, and that's how they do it. It's difficult to get in, but once you are in, it's super easy to actually compromise these systems.
So what do companies and individuals do about it to protect themselves?
So this is, of course, where companies like LogPoint come into play. Is that what we do is that every time you use a computer, you actually have a fingerprint, a digital fingerprint, also called a log. And we can ingest all these logs into a central database that can do analytics. And so maybe the human eye cannot see that a certain user is being created, that it looks very normal, but a computer knows that digitally it was created in Russia. It might contain some patterns in how it's constructed that the human eye cannot see it, but digitally it actually very, very evident that it is different and something that needs to be investigated. So companies, first of all, they have to fence themselves. That's kind of, everybody knows you have to have firewall. You need to take care of all these known defense mechanisms. But the more advanced is really going in and doing analytics to see what is going on, and then you can do countermeasures. You can maybe if you realize something is going on in one city, you can shut that city down, or if it's the department of a hospital, you can shut it down before the virus kind of spreads. Almost like an analogy to the coronavirus, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of shutting down a whole country, you can just shut down, Pennsylvania or Florida, because that's where there is a rise in contamination. And that's what we can do. So you can be much more, have much more focused way of finding out where you are compromised, shut it down, and then keep your operation up and running by having technologies like LogPoint.
What's interesting is you don't hear too many reports talking about it. No. Here in the US, you'll actually hear, it almost becomes a joke, like if something goes wrong, oh yeah, Russia hacked this, and taking it, not taking it serious. But it sounds like this is very serious and very dire, and just kind of another form of war.
Well, I think it's like, it is a very tangible form of war.
Yeah. And
just going back to the US elections and how it is known and documented that Russia really affected some of the social media and creating a lot of noise online, and it's becoming very difficult with technology to see what is legit and what is fake, and so that's also kind of in the realm of cybersecurity, these fake news, because it's using technology to kind of obscure who is behind a given message. And then when you look tangibly on a cyber attack, I really think that it's because, like I said in the earlier, that you cannot see cyber, you cannot see digital, but you can feel it if you're really a company like also energy companies that are part of a critical infrastructure. You can shut down a windmill. You can, let's say you go into a water supply system and it's all digitized. You need to have it online to do maintenance. And maybe you want to, have a pipeline that can take 1 million gallons of water every minute. But if you turn that up to 100 million, the actual pipes will explode and you'll have a situation. So there's so many things today that as we all crave for digitalizing everything, if we forget the underlying flip side of the coin, that you can also use it it can be used to your disadvantage. This is where it becomes really complex, and you have to think in your weaknesses, which is cyber, from the beginning. And this is what's happening in the world as we digitalize ourselves so much. Finally, people are waking up and really prioritizing that you need to have a cyber strategy. Because if you do not have a cyber strategy, you can ruin your company in 2 weeks.
Speaking of a cyber, do you have in the EU, is there kind of a collective movement for the different governments to say, hey, maybe we should get together and figure out a cohesive strategy and how to plan for it, because it does sound very serious. And then also separately, is there a way to kind of upskill people or train people to get into the field? Because I imagine you don't have, with all these attacks, you probably don't have enough people to who are skilled to defend against it. So is there have you seen things where they're trying to, let's en masse get people skilled and knowledgeable in cybersecurity so that they could defend this?
Yeah, there's a lot of initiatives, but it's very difficult because there is a lot of things that needs to happen, because today, as we speak, probably about 2 million to 3 million cyber jobs are open.
2
So we
million
have
to
a-
3 million.
Yes,
And wait, that's just in where? In Europe, or is that?
that's in the world. That's worldwide.
Two-
It's recognized that between 2 and 3 million jobs is the actual skill shortage that we have as we
Wow.
speak. So anyone going into cyber, that's a total easy way to protect your job career.
As a non-techie guy, but I've been speaking to, in my work for Forbes, speaking to just so many CTOs and technology executives. How can you get there? Like, if you're not, let's say you're a liberal arts graduate, or you didn't take any computer courses, is it very hard to pivot into that space? Can you reinvent yourself?
I think very much so. I think
Okay.
cybersecurity is like you're the one-eyed king in the land of the blind. Is that people think it's very complex, but once you really look into it, it's not so complex. It's, of course, there's you can have two ways of doing. You can have the business approach of how do you work with cyber in a business context, and then of course you can have cyber from a technical concept. So if you want to be an engineer, or it is a lot of various engineering direction that can turn into cybersecurity, because at the end of the day, it's all about algorithms and machine learning and all these mathematical things. So if you're into the mathematical and analytics parts of your career, anyone can pivot into a cybersecurity track. What I really like to see what's happening is one thing that Denmark has just done is that they actually start now to draft people into the military. That instead of going to become a Marine, you can become a cyber warrior from day one.
Wow, that's interesting.
So that's actually super neat, and that line is it's oversubscribed. Everybody wants to go in because it's just really cool, because military, again, like everything else, they are first with technology. And on the cyber scene, if you've been in the military for 9 months or 12 months, you are absolutely secure at work when you come out on the other side.
Jesper, this is you can appreciate this anecdotally. So I've been speaking to a lot of folks who started cool, innovative tech companies, and a lot of them are from Israel. And and when I would talk to them, they would say exactly what you mentioned. You would go into the army from 3 to 5 years, but oftentimes they're not necessarily engaged in the warfare, but they're doing all the tech and everything to create things. And then from there, they're able to build these cool businesses, because you're creating this, group of people who are like really smart in this space. So it sounds like that's what you want to do in Denmark too, to have this kind of, way to start training people in a cool way that they say, hey, I want to get part of this. This is I'm helping the country, but then, I'm going to help myself in my career. And then maybe I could even do a startup in the tech space.
Definitely. And I think we stole it from Israel, this idea. So definitely.
Because it's amazing. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to recently that have just, you name any iteration of a kind of tech, startup they've been doing. And this is the same story. It's like the same, exactly what you're saying. So that would be cool if Denmark does it, because this way you could have that same results and have this like hotbed of tech. Like, how is the tech scene there? Is it big, not big? In terms
it's very advanced. I mean, Denmark is historically very known for I always use this comparison, is very, very known for physical architecture. So designing really nice houses, the Opera House in Sydney, and a lot of other cool things from an architectural point, traditionally architecture. But we're just as good in software architecture. So there is a culture for being interested in technology from many years back, and Denmark is like most Nordic countries, quite advanced from a technical perspective. So yes, there's a huge interest in technology, but being a relatively small region, from a university perspective, that's where we struggle in terms of finding the right talent and attracting. And everybody wants talent that have capability of doing machine learning and AI and so on. And here we have a slight advantage, because it's actually more cool to work and apply your AI skills to cybersecurity instead of applying it to optimizing how you buy clothes, for instance. So in that way, it's more cool to work in cybersecurity, because you not only have a good job, but you actually also bring value to a societal problem, which a lot of young people and people overall get super excited about.
Yeah. If you don't mind my asking, how is the mood there? Because we're here in the US, we feel, it just, it doesn't seem real because we're there, you know, you have a big ocean, we're so far away. But how is it there? Does it weigh on you and the people there, like worried what's going to happen? I know they're kind of pressuring, hey, if Denmark or Finland go to NATO, that's it, the gloves are off. How is it? How are you doing?
Well, I think that the paradox in this is actually that Putin's, he thought he'd come into Ukraine and do a quick swift and then take over the country. But Ukraine, by definition, is part of Europe. And as an example, you can take Germany, which is neighboring country to Denmark. We all know, of course, that they have a sad history from the Second World War. And so far since the Second World War, just as an example, Germany has been very reluctant to be active in military activities in Europe for good reasons. But it's kind of like, and of course, Germany is a very strong economy, very advanced military, but they've always been kind of neutral and not having an opinion. But it is like with this is it. I mean, Putin has been, you know, over years been, you know, playing the nice guy, and everybody says, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Europe is actually attacked. People say Eastern European, yeah, sure, but now it is Europe. And what's next? I mean, Denmark and Sweden and Finland, for that matter, is bordering right up to Russia. What could be the next move? So I think, of course, we are also, from a distance perspective, it's a 3-hour flight from here, but still, it is close enough that you can, the way they live, the way they dress, the clothes is just like ourselves. So it feels like it's a neighbor, a real neighbor has been attacked. So it's very much in our presence, and I think that Europe have come together in a matter of 2 weeks. We're probably politically and as a collective region, we have achieved more in 2 weeks than we've done in 10 years from a political perspective. So instead of discussing who should have you know, the more rights to do small things in the day-to-day, all of a sudden we have to feel this is real danger. And it's, you know, the Maslow pyramid. Now we are down into the lower part of our fundamental requirement as human beings, and we're being threatened on our life and our bread and our families. And that's when you change your character and says enough is enough. And we are not going to have the you know, the growth in our society and the humankind in the Western world, especially in Europe. Some individual who has you know, his brain a wrong place is not going to ruin all of this, and it's amazing to see, and also must respect the Ukrainian people for how they stand up with very little capability, and they actually win by their attitude more than their actual, you know, physical and material skills. So yes, very shortly, it's of course on everybody's lips. It's very close, and what can be next? I mean, we even have a small island in Denmark that's very close to Russia, and you know, there's been 2 days ago there was 3 Russian jets overflying these islands and Sweden, and of course our jets was up there taking photographs. And right now they're actually rumoring that these Soviet fighters had nuclear weapons on board. So of course it becomes, you know, this is actually serious, and we need to do something, and we need to be hardlining on this.
So it feels that Ukraine might not be the end. There's a real chance.
Yeah, it will be. It will not be. I think Ukraine will win. It will end up with a compromise of maybe a regional split, and it will give Russia parts of the country. And remember, it's a huge country. It's twice the size of Germany. So it's kind of huge. But I think that Putin has miscalculated everything.
Yeah,
they've miscalculated how the West have come together and said this is it. We're gonna, you know, really put a lot of constraints on you as a country, and this, we will not accept this, because we cannot let it grow to other regions. Of course not.
It's amazing how the different countries galvanize together in the face of this. And I agree with you, where it looks like Putin thought, hey, we're going to come in there 2 days, we're good, we're going to, you know, take over, and didn't realize that how everyone would unite, it united everybody against him.
So, and then on the other hand, you know, it's again playing back to our how we work as a company. We have two Ukrainians that are employed in LogPoint, and one being in charge of our support, and another one very important for our product development. And of course, we kind of help them out as much as possible. We've even helped some of their families get out of Ukraine, and in any way try to support them and their families, because it is so. In that way, we have colleagues that are that have it very close.
From what I understand, that there's a very robust tech scene in Ukraine and Eastern Europe, because here in the States, it's so expensive to hire these software engineers in Silicon Valley that they're going out of their way to hire remotely. And Ukraine was one of the places doing it. So I imagine, on a positive note, for some of the people who are leaving, they might be able to get good jobs.
Oh yeah,
working for you or working for wherever.
Sure.
Because they have the skills.
Sure. I mean, they graduate 75,000 software engineers every single year.
Wow.
So it's a very advanced nation, and even within cybersecurity, it's well known that Ukraine is probably among the top 5 countries in the world in terms of being advanced. So, and they've been attacked cyber-wise from Russia for many years. So they are very fit and very skilled.
They're battle hardened. They're what's going on.
They are good. They are very good.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, because this is heavy stuff. This is important.
This is heavy stuff.
This is heavy, but I'm really glad, because here, I don't know how it is in Denmark, right? But here in the US, after a while, you don't know what the truth is. Like, you don't know, is the media spinning it one way or whether it doesn't matter, right, left, Democrat, Republican. It's just, you're left feeling, what's the real deal? So it's really nice to hear somebody who's really close to what's going on to show, hey, here's what's happening. This is what's going on, and very unfiltered, very pragmatic. Hey, this is the state of affairs. So it's really enlightening to hear it. But on a lighter note, I know last year when we spoke, or the beginning of this year, because time is weird with the pandemic, Denmark was the happiest country, right? Isn't it funny? Yes. Just a few months ago, we're talking about Denmark being the happiest country. Now we're talking about, we literally are. You're talking about a plane coming over, maybe having nuclear bombs. Sure. Right? It was I was looking before. It was January where I think we spoke. So from January to April, we went from the happiest nation to planes from Russia maybe having nuclear bombs flying over your country. Yeah. I can't even process that. But what's even worse? Finland is now the #1 happiest country. How did that happen, Jesper? Yeah. How'd you let that go on?
They cheated.
What did those Finns do? I have no idea the difference. I admit it. I'm the ugly American here. I have no idea the difference between all the different countries there. So maybe if you don't mind, indulge me, because I'm honest to admit it, but I bet you there are a lot of people who are watching who don't know either. Like, how does this work? Are you all friends together? Is it like some, competitions like brothers and sisters competition amongst, like, what goes on?
No, it goes back to, you just have to go back and to your own ancestors, because this goes back to the Viking period, right? So this is like, if you look at the Nordics and many, and for good reasons, I think Nordics there are nuances in culture, but we are from the same, fundamental value systems and so on. So whether you speak about Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, if I was American, I could also see it as one country. But of course, there's also difference between being from Texas and Massachusetts, right? But you're the same country. But the overall value system is pretty close. And I think that whether it's Finland or whatever else, I think actually this is quite interesting, is because the equality version of the female rights and men's right in the Nordics are very high level. I mean, there is the equal rights. Of course, there are still nuances. We can still improve in many areas, but I think it's generally known that because in Finland, for instance, you have we have from politicians, there's more than 50% of the politicians in Finland are female, and it just seems like the more female you have, the more intelligent a society is, and that's just facts. And I think my mother will be proud now, and I have 3 sisters, so maybe that's why. But there's some truth to it, right? I was listening to Bill Clinton once, and he was asked, so what's your view on the longer term problem for us as a planet? What can go wrong? And he didn't say a nuclear war. He didn't say it was economical inequalities. He said it was the lack of educating women that was the biggest problem. Because if you go through all the societies we have on a global basis, there is a tendency, the more educated women are, the more strong a society is, because then they get their own careers and they only get a few, they don't get that many children. And they are actually in many ways much more advanced than us men. Sorry to say, but that's how it is.
And all the ladies who are on the PR and Christine are all shaking their head. Yep.
Yep.
That's about right. I can't really
they can
disagree.
pay me later, but it's true.
I agree. Us guys, like, we're kind of knuckleheads at times. Let's be honest. Like,
we're two-dimensional.
Right? I mean, we're the ones who are gonna, hey, let's throw let's drop a nuclear bomb. Let's do this. We're
No, but you look. Let's take the weapon situation, right?
Yeah.
And you take the war situation. You have the NATO old guys, gray hair, that are disputing something, and then it's young guys between 18 and 24 who have to pay with their life.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. And if it was all mothers in charge, of course they wouldn't send somebody out to kill somebody's, each other's sons, because I mean, at the end of the day, they could be friends tomorrow, right? And now they are part of something they don't have any stake in why they're doing it, and it's just an order for somebody who they have no relation to. So it's a very, I think these type of situation with these dictators and things like this. Hopefully, there's only a few ones of them left, and it's still severe. Yeah. But I hope that we are now, progressing as a society, and that hopefully can improve things around the world.
And do you think that contributes? Because I said it, kidding around about Finland taking over, but it does seem that the Nordic countries do rank high whenever they have these studies and surveys about the happiest countries. Why is that? Because we're not ranked on there, but it's always, it seems to battle between Finland and Denmark and some others. What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think it might be a Heinz 57. There's a lot of components, but I think it's a lot comes down to trust. Mm-hmm. And it's back to the value system, that you actually trust each other and you trust the systems, right? And one of the reasons there, corruption is very low. And actually, the middle class is extremely strong. Everybody has right to education. It doesn't matter. It's not the size of your wallet that determines whether you can go in the best school. Anyone can go in a school, and we even pay people to go to school. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get $500 every single month to all students for going to school, and that's something. Of course, we have a high taxation. So of course, sometimes you are a little bit, on an individual level, you get a little pissed off that you have to pay so much in tax. But if you look at it from a more holistic perspective, it creates a more equal society, and it just means that the people are have more respect for each other, and it's not who you are and what your parents were and how rich you are that determines your daily life and what you can achieve. And I just think it's about trust, it's about respect, and it's about doing the right thing when nobody's kind of watching. And I think that's kind of, some of the reasons why we have such a strong happiness rating in the Nordics.
It makes sense, because here especially coming out of the pandemic, there's such a wealth inequality, and it's so jarring, and it really destabilizes the way we act, because there's a lot of resentment across the board. And you talked about trust. There's a lot of mistrust lately coming from out of going through COVID, coming out of COVID. So whereas it sounds like, the Nordic countries are figured it out, we're just kind of wrestling with all these things. I'm confident that for us, we'll come out of it, because it's these things go in cycles. And just we're in a weird cycle here, but it's interesting that you have your act together over there. And you're talking from a country perspective, but also these are some of the themes that you do with your own business, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's everything you have to do. You have to mirror what goes on in kind of the overall country, is also how you work and the respect for the individual, and creating a workplace that's very much influenced by the employees. That's super important. And that's how we work, and in many ways. And that's also, you know what, like we spoke last time on the hybrid workplace, is that creating an environment where we are, you know, capable of really attracting employees, and they feel that they can really influence how they work, and when they work, and what they work with, and giving a lot of, it's not management who have to tell people to go from A to B in X time. It's more, we have this situation, we want to go here, go solve it. What do you think? How do we do it? What are the best things? And that's kind of thriving, how you can also develop as a company, so that your company becomes much more equal in terms of who is doing what. And it's not just management that are right. Rarely so, actually.
So you empower the workers. So like, once you hire people, you hire them because you trust that they could do the job, and then you let them do the job without micromanaging and let them go. And then, so do you also have, like, we're kind of coalescing with the hybrid system, hybrid model? Is that what's happening in Denmark and the Nordic countries, or is it back to work 5 days a week, or is flexible?
No. It's for a long time, it's not been 5 days a week.
Right.
And you know, first of all, we also have on average 5 to 6 weeks of vacation every year, just as a caveat, because it's really important that you also regenerate and don't work all the time. But I think what I've seen, what actually surprised me a little bit, is there's a huge urge to come back and be together socially. So there's been a couple of cycles with COVID. During COVID, our biggest concern was actually that people were starting to work too much because they were at home, they couldn't do anything else, so they're just sitting in front of the computer and just working too much. And we simply had to implement a couple of systems where people should not work, and it was 24/7. So productivity went up, but I wouldn't say the happiness went up just being working from home. So what we're doing in the office is that we have, you know, you can't see, I'm actually here now, there's table tennis and there's ping pong, and there's a lot of things around that makes people want to come to us. From a developer's perspective, for instance, we are working with, you know, OKRs, where we set out what are we going to do this week. The teams do it themselves, and then they all meet up on Fridays, and then they actually show to us what have they done, and they celebrate. And maybe they work from home during the week a couple of days, but everybody wants to get in on Fridays to see what did the other teams do, how did it look, and so on. So it becomes, and then of course I cannot, you know, maybe it's also the cold beer that's available on Fridays, but it all adds up, right? But it's a matter of, and it's not me who has said this is what we want to do. So we said to everybody, what's the cadence you would like to have in the company? And then people found out themselves, and some teams work in one way and other teams in a different way. So in many ways, there's not a single source to the company. It's actually the development wants to do it one way, marketing, they might have a different approach, and then even just a company like LogPoint, we have 330 employees, but we're actually located in almost 15 countries. So what works in Denmark doesn't work in Germany necessarily. So we'll just give the Germans whatever they would like to do. They find a good solution.
And that's really great, because it sounds like you make sure that you're empowering the people to work the way they want to work, how they want to work. And instead of telling them, because like here, some companies are basically ordering, hey, you got to get back to the office.
Sure.
You're giving reasons why they should come back, where people want to come back, not being forced and having their arm twisted to come back, but coming back, whether it's the cold beer, whether it's the camaraderie, whether it's the ping pong tables, or a combination of everything, or just the way, you know, that the companies run, that they feel, hey, you know what, I want to get the heck out of my house after 2 years and go and see my colleagues, my coworkers, and contribute and be part of it. So that's fantastic. For people who want to get in touch with you, you know, in terms of finding out more, and I don't want to impose upon you, but if they want to know more about your company, or if you'd be open, if people are interested, hey, how do I get into cybersecurity? How do I get a job? How can they reach you? What's the best? Is it your website? Or
well, like everybody else, it's the easiest way is to go to logpoint.com and under you know, employees and open positions. And I think we constantly have probably about, you know, 20 to 40 open positions in many different areas. And also our LinkedIn company profile where you just search LogPoint on LinkedIn. There's a whole career page with a lot of videos of the atmosphere, some testimonials for some of our employees, and a lot of you get a good sense of what is it working not only in LogPoint but also, to your point, how is it being in cybersecurity, what kind of projects can you work on, and that would be the best way. So online at logpoint.com or LinkedIn, and then search for LogPoint.
That's great.
Or they can always search for my name, Jesper, and just send me a personal message. I'll definitely respond.
Well, that's kind of you. Anything that I didn't ask you that you feel it would be, you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I think that curiosity is super important, of course, and I think that that this important part that you touched upon is cybersecurity for real. It's just super important to especially if and sorry to say, especially if in management position, it's really important that you recognize this, because there is really a threat to all of us out there. But it's not like it's I don't want to be like a gloomy thing, because it's not that bad. And luckily, because we have products like LogPoint, we actually do have a few weapons that we can counteract whoever is trying to attack companies and societies.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. This is great, because for a number of reasons, it's the things you're talking about is so timely, and it's unfortunate what's happening in Europe and Eastern Europe. But I appreciate you could kind of share with us what's going on from your perspective, because you're much closer to it, and it opens the eyes to what's happening. And I think in terms of the cybersecurity part, I kind of intellectually knew it was bad, but when you walked it through, I didn't realize how serious that is. And I hope for people who are watching this, go to their bosses and their managers, say, hey, maybe we should do something. Maybe we got to double check and make sure it's okay. And the leadership who's watching this will be like, you know what, maybe we got to kind of check everything, because that's frightening and it's so concerning. And then for people who here, and I imagine the same thing is going on where you are, that after the pandemic, so many people have reevaluated their lives and started to think about, do I want to keep doing the same thing or try something else? So they're hungry to see what other, and this is what I love doing these podcasts, because it kind of gives information to people who may have never thought about doing cybersecurity, realize I didn't know that there are 3 million jobs open. So that's a lot of jobs. So it got to be one job, right? I want to use that one job.
Oh, yes.
and to go and do it. So for people who may have said, hey, I hate where I am, I don't know what to do. This is a fast growing area, and I could do actually something meaningful that I could be proud of, that I could protect my company, my country by doing this work. So this was really a great conversation. I so appreciate you taking the time out. This is awesome. And anyone take Jesper up on that offer. so he's
welcome.
And thank you so much for your time. And then we'll keep in touch and see, God willing, everything gets better and we don't have to worry. And next time when we speak,
we'll take it to the next level next time.
It'll be okay. So hopefully
everybody will be happy in the end.
And hopefully you get back in front of Finland. Darn it.
Yeah,
that's
we
it.
got it.
Right?
We got it covered.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking to you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.